I've seen YouTubers and other people make videos or posts about their champion teams and their playthrough teams for Pokemon, and I thought I'd do the same. The first Pokemon game that I started with was Pokemon Sun back in 2016, but it wasn't the first game that I completed. It was actually Let's Go Eevee in 2019. Completing Pokemon games felt weird to me a few years ago, because I would start a game and just not finish it. I would start a new save on a different game, especially Pokemon X. I got that game back in 2017, but I was never even able to get past the second gym. I didn't know where it was. I was too busy trying to find the Team Flare grunt in Geosenge, and I thought there was something wrong with my game, so I just kept resetting it. I replayed X in 2023, and now that I was older and not a freaking idiot, I stumbled across Grant's gym and felt pretty stupid. But in my defense, the gym is kinda out of the way, so... Anyways, speaking of 2023, that's actually when I started to play Pokemon games a lot. In March of 2023, the eShop for the 3DS was about to be shut down, and I wanted to play the Pokemon games the 3DS had. So I bought a new 3DS XL because all my other DSs were broken, and I bought Pokemon Red, Blue, Crystal, and Omega Ruby before the store shut down. It was a good thing I bought these games when I did. Now, the main point of the video, my champion teams. I'm going to show you what team I used to beat the league and some major contributing team members that I used in the playthrough, and my current team for that game if they have significance. The order that I will use to show my teams will be in generational order, but I will have a number that shows in order when I beat the game. So while Pokemon Red and Blue will logically come first, Pokemon Red was my 6th game completed. Also, I'll be going over every game I've played, even if it's a pair of the same game like Red and Blue. Now, let's check out these teams. Starting with Gen 1, the games are Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and I have played all 3 of them. Let's start with Red. My champion team was Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, Gengar, and Mew. This game was played on the Virtual Console on 3DS, and I only have one 3DS with this game, so I did some glitching. Glitches in Gen 1? That's unheard of. I watched a YouTube tutorial by Kevi Kengo, and I was able to get Bulbasaur and Squirtle alongside my starter Charmander. After I got the 3 starters, I also wanted to get a level 100 Gengar before Brock since I've messed with that glitch before. I was able to do it successfully as it didn't take long, but after I caught it, I thought I would just do the rest of the playthrough with glitch Pokemon. So after I made my way to Cerulean City, I did the Mew glitch and got one at level 100 also. I was going to add another team member like a Dragonite from the Trainer Fly glitch, but I encountered it at level 7 and didn't feel like using a bunch of rare candies on it, so I boxed it. As you might imagine, I didn't have a particularly hard time playing through this game, but it was a fun team to use, only having 5 instead of 6. Next is Pokemon Blue. I didn't play Blue on my 3DS like my Red, but on something else totally legal. I did a playthrough of Blue using Red's team from the Adventures manga, and I was planning to upload that as a video, but I didn't. I still count it as my first clear of Blue version. The team was Venusaur, Pikachu, Poliwrath, Snorlax, Gyarados, and Aerodactyl. The exact same team Red uses when he won the Pokemon League in Volume 3. This team was a pain to put together, especially getting Poliwhirl. I wanted to play the entire game just like Red, and so I decided I would trade a Poliwhirl to myself at the start, and I would have been better off just catching one later as soon as I got the Super Rod. It took me like over an hour because with all the save file altering that I had to do, it was just a massive waste of time. The team itself wasn't bad. I like using unevolved Pokemon like Pikachu because it made for a good challenge. One cool thing of note is that during the final champion battle against Blue, my Venusaur was actually the one to take out his Charizard, just like it happened in the manga. Finally for Gen 1, Pokemon Yellow. This team was actually another playthrough of a Pokemon character, this time being Ash. The team was Pikachu, Pidgeotto, Bulbasaur, Charizard, and Squirtle. There was a reason for this, and I'll talk about it more later, but I started this version around fall of 2023, but I didn't beat it until November of 2024. That was because by the time I reached the Victory Road, my whole team was level 45, and I didn't want to train on the Pokemon found there. So I didn't, for about a year. But I was bored, so around November I started grinding, and I think it took like over a week and many attempts to get everyone to level 56. I finally was able to make it to Gary, and side note, my Pikachu took out Lance's Dragonite with Thunder every time, but I finally beat Gary and completed Pokemon Yellow. Like my playthrough of Blue, I wanted to play through Yellow almost exactly like Ash's journey in the first season. This team was the one he brought to the Indigo League and lost with, but I ended up winning. Along the way, I also caught his many Kanto Pokemon: Butterfree, Primeape, Muck, Kingler, just one Tauros, Snorlax, and Lapras. I know he doesn't get those till the Orange Islands, but I wanted them anyway. I also caught Eradicate along the way too. The reason why I wanted to do this playthrough is because on July 14th, 2023 is when I started my very long journey to watch every season of the Pokemon anime. Later I'll talk about what games I was playing during which seasons I watched, but I played this one around the time I finished Season 1 and started on Season 2, but didn't finish until I was around Season 15. Next is Gen 2. The Generation 2 games are Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. I have only played Crystal and I would kind of like it to stay that way. Pokemon Crystal is the first game on this list to have a champion and a current team. My champion team was Typhlosion, Machoke, Eevee, the Red Gyarados, Skarmory, and Suicune. Yeah, I know people will complain about me using legendaries, but oh my gosh, was absolutely necessary. To this day, the Johto League is probably one of the most hardest and unfair league challenges. The Elite Four weren't that difficult. It was Lance and his 3 Dragonite under their evolution level. Add on the fact that Johto has terrible level curves, weak Pokemon on the way to the league, and my Pokemon couldn't have good moves because they were too low a level. My Eevee couldn't even evolve into Espeon before the league because of the friendship thing, but that's because it kept losing battles. This team wasn't bad overall, just a bit on the weak side. Suicune was a huge help, sure, but had a bad moveset. I got through most of Kanto using the same team, but switched some of the members to fight Red. I switched Skarmory and Suicune for Snorlax and Dragonite. My Eevee had evolved into Espeon. I didn't end up beating Red until last October because I also didn't want to grind this game. I'm much more like this current team than my previous one. Generation 3 is next, and the games are Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald. I have played all but Ruby. Starting with Sapphire, my team was Sceptile, Swellow, Hariyama, Torkoal, Groudon, and Glalie. If this team looks really familiar, it's probably because it's almost 1-to-1 with Ash's team from the Advanced series, minus Pikachu, Grovyle, and Corphish. I was playing this around the time I was watching the Hoenn seasons last spring. I didn't try to make the team similar, it was probably from watching that I put the team together like that. For a long while, up until the Victory Road, I kept my starter Trico as a Trico and only evolved him because I thought it would be a good idea to have it learn Earthquake to deal with Steven's Metagross. The grind sesh on this one was really bad. It took I think over 2 weeks to get them to level 60 with some being at 55. After beating the league, I tried to do some battles at the Battle Tower, but didn't really understand how the battles worked. I know if they were over 50, they had to battle at the level 100 one, so I just didn't bother with that. Pokemon Fire Red was almost the starting point of my marathon of Pokemon games back in 2023. I played it back in February of 2023 when there was a big snowstorm that cancelled my school for a week. Anyways, my team was Venusaur, Fearow, Raichu, Dugtrio, Arcanine, and Vaporeon. In the timeline, this was the first of the evolutions used. I like this team, I think it's great. I had never used Fearow or Dugtrio and I ended up liking them. I had used Arcanine before, but that's just because it's my favorite Pokemon. Overall, this team was great. I lost the save file of this game. I tried going back a few months later after beating the game to catch Mewtwo, but I discovered my whole save file was gone. I think the file was overwritten by a save state, but I'm not sure. I hope to do another playthrough with this team again and keep them safe this time. Thankfully, this time I still have my Leaf Green save, but I did transfer my team to later games which I will also talk about later. My Leaf Green team was Primeape, Meowth, Ninetales, Marowak, Starmie, and Dodrio. Now I know it's basically illegal to not use a starter, but I did use it for a while before boxing it. My starter was a Squirtle, but I didn't want to use that because I was planning to use a Mega Blastoise and Let's Go Pikachu, but I still haven't ended up finishing that game. This team was kind of a pain to play with. I didn't realize that Dodrio and Ninetales didn't have good level up or TM movesets, so it was difficult to use them. I kept my Meowth unevolved because I like it more than Persian, but I also wanted it to be like Tyson's Meowth from the anime. I taught it Thunderbolt. Pokemon Emerald also has a champion and current team. My champions were Mudkip, Gardevoir, Altaria, Breloom, Exploud, and Delcatty. I'm just gonna say this right now, Gardevoir absolutely carried this team. It single-handedly swept through Wallace's team in the final battle. I got lucky too, with Ralts being the first encounter I got on Route 102. I wanted to keep Mudkip as a Mudkip because Swampert is the best Hoenn starter in a playthrough, but I know that Alpharat did that Mudkip solo run a few years ago, so I wanted to do something like that. As for my current Emerald team, I swapped Delcatty for Metagross, the one that Steven left for you at his house. I trained it up a few times in the league and Metagross was here to stay. Now, I tried to do some Frontier battles and only won against one of the Frontier Brains and got a silver symbol. I don't remember which one, but the other battles were difficult and one was unfair. I ran into a Shedinja and didn't have a super effective move and lost my streak. Now, for Gen 4, the games being Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver. The only Gen 4 games I've played are Platinum and Soul Silver. I'm currently supposed to be doing a playthrough of Heart Gold, but I haven't played it in a few months because I'm lazy. If you want to know, that team right now is Croconaw, Aipom, Noctowl, and Sudowoodo. But let's move to Platinum. This was actually my second experience of Sinnoh. You'll find out why later, but my team was Turtwig, Electivire, Ambipom, Glaceon, Toxicroak, and Gliscor. Now, I really like this team. I started this playthrough the last few days of July last year and finished around September a month later. This was also during my watch through of the Diamond and Pearl series. There were also a lot of contributing team members this time. I had used Staravia, Alakazam, Gengar, and Weasel. There was also a Luxio that I had used all the way up until after beating Cyrus in the Distortion World. I liked Luxio, but I wanted to use Electivire instead, so I swapped them before Volkner. This team had no trouble beating Cynthia. Talk about an easy champion, am I right guys? My Glaceon tanks a flamethrower while being 6 levels lower. My whole team was around level 55 and they beat her no problem. Soul Silver was my second time experiencing Johto, but at least this time it was a bit better. My team was Bayleaf, Ampharos, Togetic, Umbreon, Quagsire, and Ursaring. My current team had Togetic evolve into Togekiss. This team was great because just like Fire Red, I lost the save file. This one is a bit more sad to me as I did like this team a lot, especially the starter Bayleaf. I know everyone says Chikorita is the worst Johto starter to use in a playthrough, and while yes it is, I love Bayleaf. It's my favorite Johto Pokemon. I used to hate it, but ended up loving Chikorita and Bayleaf thanks to Ashes in the anime. Ursaring joined the team really late, as a level 20 Teddiursa. Speaking of Teddiursa, I found a full odds of 1,8192 shiny Teddiursa on Mount Silver, and now it's just gone. And the worst part? I never beat Red because of Johto's terrible wild Pokemon levels. It took months to reach level 65 and I still couldn't defeat Red. I might remake this team someday, but for now this team will be missed. For the Gen 5 games, Pokemon Black, White, Black 2, and White 2, I wanted to try and experiment with certain things. I only played the 2 White games. For Pokemon White, I did a lot of team rotation, starting the trend for me to have a rotation box and rotate my team members. My first game clear team was Servine, Herdier, Girder, which later evolved into Conkeldurr, Zekrom, Crocodile, and Archeops. I also rotated with Simipour, Zipstrika, Druddigon, and Reuniclus. I also used Darmanitan and Haxorus and switched them with Girder and Zekrom, using this team to beat Alder. The Unova starters are probably my least favorite, but I've come around to Servine since then. Archeops was pretty fun and powerful to use with acrobatics, and Haxorus is absolutely the MVP of this team. I would do daily battles against the Riches and Haxorus swept them with Dragon Dance. but I feel like my White 2 team is even better. My White 2 team was Emboar, Leavanny, Palpitoad, Braviary, Zoroark, and Excadrill. I also used Lilligant and Gigalith a good amount. This team I like a lot, and I knew I wanted to use Leavanny, Braviary, and Excadrill for sure. That's why I didn't use them in White. I didn't know that Zorua was actually a gift Pokemon until I got it as a gift in Trifale City. I wanted to use Zoroark since seeing it in the movie a bit before starting this playthrough, and was glad I was able to, though it doesn't have the best moveset. Now, I did do a little cheating, as some would say, but I say I was playing by the rules. On my White version, I bred for a Temple and Rufflet egg so I could have them at the start. That does mean I was stuck with Rufflet till right before the league, but it wasn't all that bad. I kept Palpitoad as Palpitoad, one because Ash had one in the anime, and also I do actually like Palpitoad a bit more than Seismitoad. I was planning on using Seismitoad, but I just decided to have something weaker because I hate myself. I'm kidding, of course. Palpitoad wiped the floor with Iris's Haxorus. Generation 6 is the one that introduced Mega Evolution and the start of gimmicks. The Gen 6 Pokemon games are X, Y, Omega Ruby, and Alpha Sapphire. I have played all but Alpha Sapphire. My team for Pokemon X was Greninja, Charizard, Lucario, Go-Goat, Absol, and Florges. In retrospect, the first three are probably more basic for a Kalos team than a Diamond and Pearl team, but just maybe. I was excited to use multiple Mega Evolutions since this was my first time that I would be able to properly use them in the game they were introduced. I used, of course, Mega Charizard X and Mega Lucario, and not Mega Absol. Yeah, I didn't find out until halfway through that the Absolite Stone was post-game, so it was a bit disappointing, but Absol is still one of my favorite Megas. Besides all that, it wouldn't matter because X and Y are easy games. It's still fun. Pokemon Y was actually my first Pokemon playthrough of this year. My team was Delphox, Venusaur, Tyranitar, Heracross, Pangoro, and Goodra, with Venusaur, Tyranitar, and Heracross being able to Mega Evolve. I also used Aurorus and Clawitzer at some points too. This team was also kind of cheated, but not really. I traded myself the Tyranitarite and the Heracronite from my Pokemon X and Omega Ruby games respectively. You would not believe the kind of luck that I had at the start of this game. I had also traded myself eggs of Larvitar and Heracross, and they both came with stats that lowered their dominant attack stat. Bulbasaur also came with a special attack lowering stat. Other than struggling a lot at the beginning, this game was still easy. Pokemon Omega Ruby was my first experience with Hoenn, and it would definitely not be my last. I'm pretty sure Hoenn has been one of my most replayed regions. For my first Hoenn playthrough, I used Blaziken, Linoon, Manectric, Aggron, Flygon, and Medicham. Blaziken, Manectric, Aggron, and Medicham could all Mega Evolve, and Medicham was added late only because it could Mega Evolve. Mega Blaziken with Speed Boost was a huge help, especially against Steven's Mega Metagross. Moving on to Gen 7 with my favorites, the Alola games. Those are Pokemon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon, alongside Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I have played all Gen 7 games except Moon. Pokemon Sun was my first true Pokemon game experience. I don't think I got that far, but when I went back to play it in 2023, I finally beat it. My team was Primarina, Incineroar, Decidueye, Alolan Raichu, Toucannon, and Shiny Alolan Raticate. I'll talk about the Shiny in a second, but I want to go over the starters real quick. The Alola trio of starters is my favorite trio of starters. I think they have good designs and they're fun to use. Litten was my first starter when I first played the game back in 2016, so I wanted to use one in both games. Raichu is a Pokemon I have used a lot, but it's one of my favorites and its Alolan form is different enough to have a new experience with. Toucannon was fine to use, and I used it because it's the regional bird. Now, Moonrat, my shiny Alolan Raticate. I was just stumbling on Ancient Pony Path and it just appeared. My first full odds shiny in a playthrough in a very long time. Even though it wasn't that great in the league, it was still something amazing. Now, my next team is probably one of my favorites. My team was Incineroar, Duskform Lycanroc, Partner Cap Pikachu, Zarina, Alolan Sandslash, and Kamao. And the current team replaces Pikachu, Zarina, Sandslash, and Kamao for Decidueye, Primarina, and Raichu from Sun, and the Solgaleo caught in this game. Now, the first team and the current one were largely built around their specific Z Crystal because Z moves are my favorite gimmick. I know a lot of people don't like them or prefer Mega Evolutions, but I think Z moves are great. Also, Lycanroc and Pikachu were probably my other two favorites of this team, especially Pikachu with its 10 million volt Thunderbolt Z move. I'm a bit mixed on my Ultra Moon team. The team was Rowlet, Shiny Flareon, Mudsdale, Ash Greninja, Mimikyu, and Naganadel. I also used a Ribombee for a significant amount during the late game. I know this team may seem a bit messy, but I don't think it was all that bad. I wanted to use a starter again, and since this playthrough was during my watch through of the Sun and Moon series, I used Rowlet, just like Ash's in the anime. And yeah, my second Alola game with a full odds Shiny. This one was even crazier because it came from an SOS call. I was going through Route 4 and I wanted to catch an Eevee. On one turn, it did an SOS call and there was Shiny Eevee. I couldn't believe it. At first, I was going to evolve it into Jolteon since I hadn't used one before, but then I wanted it to be Flareon since it's my favorite evolution. One reason I was mixed about this team was because for a really long time, it was just Rowlet, Flareon, and Mudsdale. You can't use the Battle Bond Greninja until you beat Olivia's Grand Trial at the end of Akala Island. Originally, I wanted to use the Totem Mimikyu you get from collecting 80 Totem stickers, but you can't put them in Pokemon Bank and send them to home, so I just decided to catch one at the Mega Mart. And for Naganadel, I've never used an Ultra Beast, so I just decided to use the gift Poipole. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee was the first Pokemon game that I ever completed. The team was Lepartner Eevee, Pidgeot, Victreebel, Arcanine, Poliwrath, and Zapdos. Pretty different Kanto team from the usual 3 starters, Nidoking, and or Snorlax, though this team probably isn't all that unique. Lucky the Eevee is probably my favorite of the whole team, and it's a real shame that it's still stuck on this game. I still have my original save file from 2019, and I don't ever plan on restarting this game. That's what Let's Go Pikachu is for. I got Arcanine on this game from the lady in Vermilion City who requested 5 Meowth since Growlithe is a Let's Go Pikachu exclusive. Overall, this team was fine. I still haven't moved the team from this game into the newer ones, but I just might. I just don't want to lose them in this game. Finally on Gen 8, the games being Pokemon Sword, Shield, Brilliant Diamond, and Shining Pearl, as well as Legend Arceus. I have played all but Shining Pearl, and I think it's best it stays that way. Pokemon Sword, the first new generation Pokemon game that I completed. My first team was Cinderace, Leafeon, Shiny Obstagoon, Eternatus, Lapras, and Gigantamax Snorlax. In retrospect, this team I probably wouldn't use in a Galar playthrough. Back then I didn't care about using that generation's Pokemon. I just used the ones that I like. When the starters were first revealed, I didn't really feel anything about the 3 of them, but then some of my friends got the game before me and chose Grookey or Sobble, and I chose Scorbunny. I was probably still going to choose it anyways because fire is my favorite type, but still, it felt very special to me. Also, I was very shocked to see that my starter Scorbunny had Pokerus. Oh yeah, the Shiny Obstagoon. I'm pretty sure it was my very first Shiny ever in a mainline game, and I almost didn't notice. I was doing a max raid battle and there was a Galarian by noon. I didn't see the shiny sparkle at the beginning and thankfully I caught it. I was shocked when I saw it on the screen and decided to use it. I used Eternatus on my final team because I thought it was cool, and I don't know if I used any other Pokemon during my playthrough. For my current team, I wanted it to be better, so all Galar Pokemon. The current team is now Gigantamax Cinderace, Obstagoon Still, Shiny Berserker, Sirfetch'd, Mr. Rime, and Dracovish. I do like my team a lot more, but I still use some of the first ones. I got Shiny Berserker from a raid, I'm pretty sure, and Sirfetch'd, Mr. Rime, and Dracovish were all used in my Pokemon Shield playthrough as well. The Mr. Rime evolved from the gift Galarian Mr. Mime I got back in 2020, and I caught and revived Galarian Farfetch'd and Dracovish in this game, respectively. For Pokemon Shield, I played it back in June while I was watching through Pokemon Journeys, and I used a full team of Galar Pokemon this time. The team was Inteleon, Corviknight, Colossal, Amped Toxtricity, Grapploct, and Alchemy. All but Grapploct could Gigantamax. As I said before, I used these Pokemon alongside my Shield team so I could easily train them up for my current Sword team. Also, I used the shiny Kamo-O I transferred in from Pokemon Go Line, so I think it should count. This team I actually really do like. The different G-Max forms made for more variety in gym battles, and getting to use strong Galar Pokemon was fun. Also, I had to do a lot of moving between Pokemon games so I could give them G-Max soup. I had to keep sending them to my Sword game with a completed DLC so I could make them all Gigantamax, and it was very tedious. Now, back in 2023, when I was doing my marathon, I needed to play a Sinnoh game. So, Brilliant Diamond was my first experience of Sinnoh, and I know this might be controversial. The game wasn't actually all that bad. Now, I know that's probably because it was my first time playing through Sinnoh, so I didn't have any prior experiences. The team I used to beat Cynthia was Infernape, Mamoswine, Magnezone, Gallade, Togekiss, and Tangrowth. Now, this team may seem a bit surprising since there's no Staraptor, Floatzel, Lucario, or Garchomp. That's because I didn't want a generic Sinnoh team. All of these Pokemon besides Infernape were transferred in from Legends Arceus, which made the game quite a bit harder since they would stop obeying me constantly. While playing, I'm pretty sure I only caught one wild Pokemon, which was a Beautifly, because I like Beautifly. Compared to Platinum, Platinum is obviously the better game, but I didn't really hate Brilliant Diamond, even though I wouldn't want to do a replay of that game. Also, the League battles. I think they were fine, and Cynthia was not hard at all. The only challenge was when she sent out her Garchomp last, and it swept through my entire team, but Magnezone finished it off with a Flash Cannon. Now, I'll say up front, Legends Arceus is the one game where I'm not exactly sure which team I used to beat the main game, the final battle against Volo. Pretty sure the team was Hisuian Typhlosion, Raichu, Lucario, Glalie, Octillery, and Alakazam, based on this picture I took while the world was ending. I also think I used Alpha Hisuian Avalugg and Mantine. All but Typhlosion were Alpha Pokemon. I like Legends Arceus, but I might do a replay using more Hisui Pokemon, and especially a Hisuian Arcanine, since I didn't want to use one as it would have overlapped with Typhlosion. I do remember the Volo and Giratina battles being particularly hard, so I might have to switch a party member around, but I don't exactly remember. Now, here we are, the current generation of Pokemon, the games being Pokemon Scarlet, Violet, and now Legends ZA, and I have played all three of them. Now, I played Pokemon Scarlet after Violet, and you'll see why in a second, but the Scarlet team was Shiny Quaquaval, Shiny Meowscarada, Armarouge, Garganacl, Kilowattrel, and Tinkaton. The two shiny starters came from eggs that I'd already had, and they both hatched with their hidden abilities. That made for some fun gameplay. The whole reason I used this team was because when I played Violet, I only used 2 Paldean Pokemon and wanted to use more. When I play a Pokemon game for the first time, I usually choose the Fire-type starter because Fire is my favorite type. I wanted to use Ceruledge in my Violet playthrough, but it's a Fire and Ghost type, and Skeledirge is a Fire and Ghost type also. So I used Armarouge instead so I could use one of these cool Fire-type armor Pokemon. The other 3 were strong Paldea Pokemon that I had wanted to use. Pokemon Violet was the last Pokemon game that I played before my marathon that I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my team. The team was Skeledirge, Duskform Lycanroc, Houndstone, Raichu, Sylveon, and Garchomp. Now, I know a lot of people hate Scarlet and Violet, and I was like that at first too. I played Violet when it first came out, and I played it for a few days and just stopped because I got a little bored of it. It wasn't until March of 2023 when I finally finished the game. I do agree that Violet is glitchy and kind of a pain to play, but I played through it all and I actually enjoyed it. This team was mainly Pokemon I liked and wanted to use, and 2 Paldean Pokemon. When the starters were first revealed, I didn't really have any feelings for them, and I chose Fuecoco because it's Fire-type. But I actually did like it while I was playing through the game. For most of it, I kept it as a Crocalor and evolved it into Skeledirge before the champion battle with Gita. My current Violet team is Skeledirge, Ceruledge, Palafin, Iron Valiant, Shiny Hydrapple, and Shiny Archaludon. Also, recently I played through Violet again around my birthday on Switch 2, and it was a much better experience. That team was Florigato, Pawmi, Ceruledge, Goldengo, Kingambit, and Baxcalibur. The most recent Pokemon games that everyone seems to hate. And well, I do agree that the game does look bad. I love this game. My final team which I used against Angie was Emboar, Excadrill, Gardevoir, Hawlucha, Alpha Dragonite, and Greninja. All of these Pokemon can now Mega Evolve, and I did use the Gift Vault, but I've never used Mega Gardevoir in a playthrough before. I had a great time playing through this game, and though I've used most of these Pokemon in a playthrough before, it was refreshing to use them in a new way. All the teams that I used are very special to me. Some of them I do prefer more than others, but there isn't a single team that I hate or dislike. All of these Pokemon games were fun to play through, and the Pokemon made them that more special. Pokemon Champions should be out sometime in 2026, and I'm very much looking forward to it. One big thing that I want to do has to do with these teams. Champions will let us use our Pokemon from home, and as long as they aren't trapped in Champions, I'm pretty much going to exclusively use them. I had this insane idea to play competitively using only my champion teams. I'm pretty sure I would immediately lose because I don't even play competitive normally. But it's just a fun idea. Before Champions comes out, I've been transferring my teams from my very legit GBA and DSs to all of the generations to get them into the Hall of Fame across multiple regions. Currently, I'm about to put these 8 teams through the Hoenn League in Omega Ruby. That's also another thing I'm looking forward to, transferring old Pokemon up, getting new forms or gimmicks, like Skarmory's Mega Evolution or Primate being able to evolve into Annihilate. Anyways, I love Pokemon and I'll always love Pokemon. Here's to hoping Champions can support all of my champion teams.